we're in public?
We're in open.
We're in public, okay. So item number 6, which is the draft minutes. Draft minutes of proceedings, page 74, or at page 74 to 82 of the meeting pack. Is everybody content of the draft minutes of 24th October, a true reflection of the proceedings? Yes, thank you. Next item then is item number 7, no matters arising. No. 8, which is a directive, EU directive, as regards certain reporting requirements in the fields of food and food ingredients, outdoor noise, patients' rights and radio equipment, and we're going to have departmental written evidence. So can I just inform everybody that the FSA has provided an assessment of impact in relation to amendments to Directive 1992 EC. Copy of the FSA's assessment is at page 15 to 18 of the meeting pack. FSA officials won't be attending today's meeting as they believe this to be a very minor technical amendment and have really nothing further to add other than what they've given in their written evidence. So the Department for the Economy Telecoms branch has indicated it has no remit over radio equipment and therefore cannot comment on the directive, and the Department of Health states that the patients' rights element covered by Directive 2011-24 EU does not apply here under Annex 2 of the Windsor Framework. So under paragraph 8.1 of Schedule 8B, the committee must decide today whether or not to hold an inquiry into the Public Replacement EU Act. That has been notified, and should the committee fail to decide, the failure will be treated as a decision not to hold an inquiry. So we've had legal advice and we've got the written advice. So I'm just going to ask the question then, having had regard to the legal advice and whether it appears likely that the Replacement EU Act significantly differs in whole or in part from the content or scope of the EU instrument which it amends or replaces, and the FSA's assessment on whether it appears likely that the Replacement Act would have a significant impact specific to everyday life of communities here in a way that is liable to persist, do members wish to hold an inquiry into Directive EU 2024-2839 as regards certain reporting requirements in the fields of food and food ingredients, outdoor noise, patients' rights and radio equipment?
No.
Okay, no dissents. Okay. So, can I advise, member, that the committee's decision in relation to the Act will be published on its webpage? So, just moving on then. So, we're now moving on to item number 9 on the agenda, which is Regulation EU 2024-2838, and this is about certain reporting requirements, and we have departmental oral evidence. Can I just inform everybody that this item will be recorded by Hansard? Refer everybody to relevant papers, and they can be found at pages 35 to 60 of our meeting packs. There's an assessment of impact from the Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs, and that can be found at pages 54 to 56, and an assessment from the Department for Infrastructure can also be found at pages 57 to 59 of the meeting pack.
Sorry, Chair, we haven't got an answer yet.
Can we just pause for a moment then?
Committee Room 30, sound. Committee Room 30, sound. Committee Room 30, sound.
There's notifications for December. Are we in public? Okay, so if everybody's agreed, we're just going to skip item 9, come back to it, and go to item 10 on the agenda, which is committee notifications for December. Can I refer members to the relevant papers at pages 87 to 90 of the meeting pack? And I'm going to ask the clerk to speak to this.
Okay, as the Chair said, my paper's at page 87, and because statutory timelines aren't attached to notifications in relation to replacement EU acts that have been proposed by the Commission, the paper only deals with notifications that might be received in relation to acts that have been published in the EU Official Journal. But before I go through the different scenarios for the pauses, I want to draw attention to the main matters that I took into consideration when drafting the paper and coming up with the proposals. So firstly, the committee previously indicated that meetings should only be scheduled during holiday periods when absolutely necessary to meet their statutory obligations, and on the understanding that the statutory obligations absolutely have to be met. Secondly, the Assembly is in recess from the 14th of December to the 5th of January. Parliament buildings will be closed from 21st to the 1st of January, but that doesn't stop the committee from meeting. Thirdly, the public holiday period for EU institutions runs from the 23rd of December to the 2nd of January inclusive. So that means that updates to the official journal are unlikely to be published during that public holiday period unless there is an emergency. And finally, I spoke with an official from Cabinet Office who indicated that although there's no certainty, it's unlikely that there will be any replacement acts published in the journal during the EU public holiday period. He also said that from past experience, work in relation to EU legislation slows down considerably from mid-December until after the first week in January due to leave arrangements for lawyers, linguists, policy officers, etc. So I've outlined a number of options in the paper. So the outworkings of these options only deal with committee meeting days. The paper doesn't address the evidence gathering and preparation work that would be required to allow the meetings to take place and to ensure that members have all the necessary information available to them to be able to make an informed decision. So the committee could pause notifications on the 19th of December. So that means that a decision on whether to conduct an inquiry wouldn't need to be made on the 30th of December. That's because of the holiday period, that's the 5 working day time frame. So, but saying that, the committee may well need to meet on the 19th of December to make decisions on notifications that might have come on the 12th or to facilitate part of an inquiry if any is ongoing. The committee could pause notifications on the 26th of December. And that means that a decision on whether to conduct an inquiry would not need to be made on the 2nd of January. So if the committee was to pause notifications on the 19th and the 26th of December, notifications of any replacement acts published between Friday the 13th of December, which is the day after the last notification would be made, and Sunday the 22nd, which is the day before the EU goes into what is effectively a recess. These would be received on the 2nd of January, and a decision on whether to conduct an inquiry would need to be made on the 9th of January. So, and to illustrate what these condensed inquiry timelines would look like, they're included in your packet annexes 1 and 2, pages 89 and 90. So they're drafted on the basis of weekly meetings. However, more than one meeting a week or a day might be needed depending on the circumstances. But just to be clear, that if the committee was to pause notifications on both the 19th and the 26th, both those scenarios, the committee would be able to meet its statutory obligations.
Okay, any questions? Okay, if there are no questions, I'm going to propose that the committee pause notifications on those two dates, the 19th and the 26th.
The 26th.
Content? Okay, thank you. Okay, just we'll move backwards then to item number 9. So EU Regulation 2024-2838 regards certain reporting requirements, and we're going to have departmental oral evidence. Again, just to repeat, this will be recorded by Hansard, and all the items are at the pages which I previously outlined. I'm not going to do that again. So can I just welcome Adrian Borland, Head of Vehicle Policy Branch from the Department of Infrastructure, Paddy Kearns, Vehicle Policy Branch, DFI as well, and I have down here Fiona Taylor, Head of Sea Fisheries Policy and Grants Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs, but they're obviously...
Chair, that was changed to myself. It was Director of Marine Fisheries Division.
Okay.
Can't go until we get answered.
Answer.
Oh, sorry, Hansard's not here.
Okay.
So we're good to go? Okay, I just want to come forward, so apologies I didn't have the change in
Apologies, Chair. Fiona was caught up in EU-UK coastal negotiations for fishing quota, so you've got me.
That sounds much less important than our business. Okay, so I'm just going to hand over to yourselves then.
So, Chair, I think I'll start. Good morning. So I'm here, colleagues from Department for Infrastructure, to brief you on Regulation 2024-2038, amending various regulations as been outlined, covering vehicle standards and fishery and aquaculture policy. So I'll start with the fisheries and aquaculture policy first. So Regulation EU 2024-2838 of the European Parliament and of the Council of the 23rd of October 2024 amends the Regulation EU 1379-2013, which in itself looks at the common organisation of the markets of fishery and aquaculture products, and amends other regulations and repeals, particularly Council Regulation EC 104/2000, which is listed in the Windsor Framework Annex A, heading 46, Fisheries and Aquaculture, insofar as it concerns provisions relating to marketing standards and consumer information, and it was adopted on Tuesday the 12th of November 2024. Regulation EU 1379/2013 in itself concerns common organisation of the markets in fishery and aquaculture products, and the proposal will remove the reporting obligation in relation to the marketing of fish below a given degree of freshness for human consumption. Regulation 1379, which I'll just refer to, applies in Northern Ireland insofar as it concerns provisions relating to marketing standards and consumer information under Annex 2 of the Windsor Framework. This includes Chapter 3, Common Marketing Standards, Articles 33 and 34, and Chapter 4, Consumer Information, Articles 35 to 39 of that regulation. With the exception of those provisions, the UK's retained version of 1379 applies in Northern Ireland as retained by the Common Fisheries Policy Amendment, etc., EU Exit Regulations 2019. So to summarise what's happening, this regulation removes and simplifies reporting requirements which are no longer deemed necessary in the area of the common organisation of the markets in fishery and aquaculture products and affecting the fishing industry. Regulation 1379 provides that rules establishing common marketing standards, and in particular those laid down inter alia in Council Regulation 240696, are to continue to apply. Article 13 of Regulation 240696 requires that each member state is to provide the other member states and the Commission with a list of names and addresses of experts and trade organisations appointed for grading fishery products for freshness and size not later than 1 month before the entry into force of that regulation, and is to subsequently inform the other member states and the Commission of any amendments to the list. As that requirement is outdated and no longer necessary to achieve the objectives of Regulation 1379, it should no longer apply. So the assessment of the impact, it does not appear likely that the application of the Replacement EU Act would have a significant impact specific to everyday life of communities in Northern Ireland, as the only amendment being introduced is a removal of a reporting requirement. It does not appear likely that not applying the Replacement EU Act would have a significant impact specific to everyday life of communities in Northern Ireland. Not applying the Replacement Act would mean that the requirements to inform Member States and the Commission of any amendments to the list of names and addresses of the experts and trade organisations appointed for grading fishery products for freshness and size would continue to apply in Northern Ireland. There is no effect on Northern Ireland's participation in the UK's free trade agreements, and there is no effect on Northern Ireland's participation in the UK's common frameworks. All of the regulations to be amended apply directly in Northern Ireland, and no further legislation is required. So I don't know if you want questions now on that, or do you want to pass to DFI colleagues?
Okay, just in relation to that, it seems pretty straightforward. So essentially, in layman's terms, the objectives are still there. This particular piece that's been removed is outdated, and there's no impact on consumers here in the north.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Reduces reporting requirements because of the outdated nature.
Okay, does Steve?
Yeah, and it doesn't affect any movements across into the rest of our nation.
No.
Okay, so done. Yeah, happy.
Grand job. So we'll just move on then.
Surely. Regulation EU 24283 is a regulation whose purpose is to amend the other three EU regulations listed in its title in order to streamline the reporting obligations contained within them. The amending regulation has no standalone provisions of its own. The EU regulations that are being amended that are of relevance to DFI are Regulation EU number 167/2013 and Regulation 168/2013. Both those regulations are listed in Annex 2 of the Protocol under Heading 9, Motor Vehicles, including agriculture and forestry tractors. Regulation 167/13 covers the type approval framework for agricultural and forestry vehicles and sets out the rules on the approval and market surveillance of those vehicles. It is being amended to delete Articles 74 and 75. Regulation 168/13 covers the type approval framework for 2- or 3-wheeled vehicles and quadricycles, again setting out the rules on the approval and market surveillance for those vehicles. The amendment here is the deletion of Articles 78 and 80. In both cases, the deletions remove the requirement to submit reports to the Commission on the annual number of individual vehicle approvals made under each regulation and any deviation from the approval criteria specified. These deletions follow an EU Commission study in 2022 covering such reporting requirements that concluded that the type approval procedures in scope were satisfactory and that the reporting obligations in place should no longer apply. It's therefore a positive deregulatory development. As the committee will be aware, type approval is a reserved matter, and as such, the Department for Transport had published in January 24 an explanatory memorandum in relation to the amendments as they were proposed at that point. The EM includes an initial assessment of the impact of these proposed amendments, and that assessment concluded that the removal of these reporting requirements would have no practical effect on Northern Ireland and has no implications for the Windsor framework. I should say that we've been in contact with DFT following the request to attend today's meeting, given that their EM was completed some time ago. DFT have advised that following the adoption of the regulation, they are preparing a revised version of their explanatory memorandum, and although not yet published, they have indicated that its contents will essentially be the same in terms of the earlier assessment of impact.
Okay. Sounds straightforward. I have no questions. Okay, Paddy, over to you. You're happy enough?
No, you support me.
Okay, thank you very much. Adrian, Owen, Paddy, that was pretty straightforward. You're free to go.
Thank you.
Once I get the right page. Okay, so again, under paragraph 8.1, Schedule 6B of the 1998 Act, the committee must decide today whether or not to hold an inquiry into the published replacement EU Act that has been notified. Should we fail to decide, the failure will be treated as a decision not to hold an inquiry. So, having had regard to the legal advice on whether it appears likely that the replacement EU Act significantly differs in whole or in part from the content or scope of the EU instruments which it amends or replaces, and the departmental assessments on whether it appears likely that the Replacement Act would have a significant impact specific to everyday life of communities here in a way that is liable to persist. Can I ask members, do you wish to hold an inquiry into Regulation EU 2024-2838 as regards certain reporting requirements? No? All content?
Content.
Okay, thank you. The committee's decision in relation to this Act will be published on its web page. So we've done item number 10. We're now at correspondence. So item number 11, correspondence. Pages 92 to 98 of the pack is an update from the Executive Office in relation to current proposed EU legislation relevant to here. This information will assist the committee in its next prioritisation exercise on proposed EU acts that begin their legislative passage before the committee was established. Everybody content to note this?
Chair, just if we could seek some reassurance that this is being updated on a regular basis. There's a couple in there, one around the shipments of waste that had been published and dealt with by the committee and so on, and maybe not updated. It may have been just whenever they've taken this from, but just to seek assurance that it's being regularly updated for those who use it.
Yeah.
So things that we've dealt with should be removed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. That's a good point. Item 11.2 to 11.5, pages 99 to 106 of the meeting pack are responses from the British Cabinet Office to correspondence. At item 11.2, this is in relation to the committee's request to be kept updated on EU delegated acts in relation to eco-design requirements for sustainable products. People content to note?
Yeah.
11.3 is in relation to the proposed EU regulation on the welfare of dogs and cats. Content to note? Okay. Are members content that this correspondence and similar correspondence relating to proposed and published EU acts which the committee is considering is routinely published?
Agreed.
Okay, at 11.4, this is in relation to proposed EU regulation on classification, labelling and packaging of substances and mixtures. British Cabinet Office expects a final version of the legislation to be published in the EU official journal shortly and states that it will provide an EM when available. Happy to note? Okay. 11.5 is in relation to the proposed EU regulation on plant health controls and reporting obligations. So again, the British Cabinet Office states that it will provide explanatory materials once the regulation has been published in the EU journal. Content to note? Okay. 11.6. So pages 107 to 109 is a memo from the Clerk of the Public Accounts Committee regarding primacy over audit office reports. Content to note?
Noted.
Okay, and then 11.7, pages 110 to 111 is an invitation from the Human Rights Commission regarding the launch of its annual Human Rights Statement 2024. Content to note?
Noted.
Thank you. Item number 12 then, Chair's business. So I just want to inform the members who were there that and the members who weren't there that we had a very successful trip to Brussels last week. It was very useful and informative, and we were kept pretty busy when we were there. So thank you letters will issue to those who met with the committee, and a secretariat paper recording the meetings that took place will also be circulated in due course. Can I, on behalf of the committee, thank the team, in particular Sinead and Shelley, for organising the visit and the meetings. It run very, very smoothly and was excellent. So thank you very much.
Sure. Just coming in there. I think one of the key things that came out of the meeting was when the European, in January, about timings for the committee to go back out there. Through the chair of the committee and through the committee, I've been talking to a couple of EU ambassadors over the last week or so, and they sort of really emphasised the fact that being there would be very useful at that particular time. So to note, but I think we should look very closely at that, getting that in the diary, and also the suggestion that it became a regular event. If at each year at annual event we're seen to be there, I think it would be useful. Yep.
So the secretary are looking to come back with a paper in terms of our next trip out, so all of those comments will be included in that.
Yep. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so just then also to inform everyone, the NI Affairs Committee plans to visit Belfast on Monday the 2nd and Tuesday the 3rd of December, and a meeting between myself and David as Deputy Chairperson has been requested. So the meeting will be either on the 2nd or 3rd, and we'll let everybody know afterwards what was discussed. Everybody content to note?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, any other business? None? Date, time, place for next meeting. Next meeting of our committee is next Thursday, 21st of November, 10 a.m. in Shaw, room 30. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Committee Room 30, sound.